On this episode of Locked On Angels, Rendon is hurt again. So how is he handling the news? Christian Moore is hurt, and we're wondering if he'll be back this season or should he even come back this season. And we're recapping Griffin Canning's awful start last night because we have to. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all this Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with John and I and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
We're talking Angels baseball Monday through Friday, every single weekday with you here on Locked On Angels. Thank you for being an everydayer, and if you're not, well, you're always welcome to become an everydayer. So join us each and every day of the week. Hey, on today's show, we're talking about Anthony Rendon being hurt again, back on the IL. How is he handling all of these injuries? We're going to give you an update on Christian Moore's knee injury. But first, Mike, oh boy, we got to recap the game against the Minnesota Twins from last night. The Angels lose this one 10-4.
Is the season over yet, John? Because
mercy.
Yeah, we just simulate to the end of the year, and hopefully that's the best. The Angels found themselves down early in this game. Can I just reiterate the point that when they score first against good teams, they end up winning. When they don't score first, they end up losing. And so Griffin Canning in this game really struggled. 3 home runs. He gave up his first, a 3-run home run to Kyle Farmer in the second inning. John, it was a changeup, 89 miles an hour, right down the middle.
I could have hit that one, Mike.
I was just going to use that same joke. So
yeah. 3-run home run off of John Frisch. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been so easy. And it was right after he threw a ball in the dirt where he was really trying to get the batter off balance and get him to look outside. And that pitch was right down the middle. In fact, I looked on the Game Day app and just to see like where it was, it was right down the middle.
It was certainly right down the middle. That's for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Terrible location. It was 4-0 Twins. They added another homer. They made it 5-0. It was 6-0 in the top of the 5th. And then Taylor Ward got the Halos on the board with an RBI single. Then Zach Neto follows with a 3-run home run. John, all of this happened with 2 outs. Now, question for you. Have you noticed, obviously the Angels aren't great with runners in scoring position, but when there are 2 outs, something shifts in them, right?
Can I speculate a little bit? Because
yeah, please.
This is where we are at this point. This is where we are at this point of the season. And, at this point, we're hoping for a better draft position that we can be at least in the top 3, which,
right.
If this were a regular draft, we would be in the 3rd position. So that's what we're hoping for here. But here's the thing about that comment, Mike. They turn it on with 2 outs. It's because you've got Jack Lopez or Cole Tucker getting you 2 outs, and then you turn the lineup over, and it's Taylor Ward and Zach Neto and Nolan Shawnuel, and it's like it just feels like that's the situation that we're always in. Is you got these guys leading off or starting the inning. Now that's obviously an exaggeration because guys like O'Hoppe are going to strike out, Neto's going to strike out or fly out every now and then, but that's what it feels like to me. And again, we try to base our interpretations of the game on what's actually happening, but I'm just giving you how I feel. And how I feel is it's always the wrong guys in the wrong moments, or the right guys coming up when there's 2 outs and things are on the line. So look, it made the game 6-4. So that was good news.
Now I'm just going to reaffirm your point. All right. I know we got some heat because we were talking about Brandon Drury in a negative way yesterday, but we had 2 runners on in the first inning, and Brandon Drury grounds into a double play to end the inning, right? Like, he's batting cleanup. That's a terrible spot for him to be in because of where he's at. So it just kind of reiterates the point of the wrong guys are up at the wrong time, and this lineup is not balanced in a really, I think, baseball healthy way.
The only redemption story I'm interested in is the Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader redemption story. RIP to James Earl Jones, obviously. I don't care about Brandon Drury's redemption arc.
Yeah.
I don't need him to have a redemption arc.
Yeah.
I don't want him to have a redemption arc. Like he did this last year. Great offensive player and was great in August and September, right?
Yeah.
And that's where we are again. And I know he had the big 2-run home run the other night, but it just... what are we doing? And again,
nobody wants you here. Jerry doesn't want you here. John doesn't want you here.
Nobody wants you here. But it comes back to that is the wrong guys up in the wrong situations and the right guys coming up at a disadvantage when there is 2 outs and you have to deliver the way that these guys did.
Yeah. Twins came back right after the Angels came within 2 runs, 6-4.
Right back, of course.
Yeah. I mean, it was easy to just let them right back into the game, right? So 2 more runs in the 5th and then 2 more runs in the 6th inning. All of them came off of Griffin Canning. He had a terrible line, 5 2/3 innings, 9 hits, 10 runs, 9 earned, 3 walks, 4 Ks, 3 homers. Johnny, I know eating innings is a part of baseball. I know you need pitchers that are going to get some of those dirty innings, right? But don't you also want successful innings, effective innings? And right now, man, Griffin Canning is getting the dirty innings, but it's his fault that they're dirty, right?
You know what? You said something last week and it made me laugh. And it was during our Shohei Ohtani conversation about the media asking about his contract and working that out with the Angels. And the way you started your comment out was, yeah, are we over this? Are we past this now? Because we're over it. And that's exactly how I feel about Griffin Canning, Mike.
Yeah.
I am so sick of this back and forth. He comes out one week, looks great against the Dodgers, but this is exactly who he's been all season long. And Mike, he's played himself out of a rotation spot. Okay. I don't want him in the rotation. I don't need him in the rotation. I would rather give opportunities to Sam Algadari. I'd rather give opportunities to Jack Kohanowitz. I'd rather see Caden Dana take the opportunities. Caden Dana can poop the bed in the first inning like last week, and I will give that guy chance after chance after chance because I've seen enough of Griffin Canning. Yeah. It's been this way since 2019. The guy missed some time with a back injury. I totally understand that, but he pitched fine last year, not great. But this season has been an absolute disaster for Griffin Canning. And we saw it happening in spring training, Mike. He had to get taken out of games and put back into games because they had that rule where you can substitute pitchers because they're just trying to get these guys stretched out and have good innings in spring training. But this has continued all season long. And so I'm just over him being in this rotation. I don't care that he threw 130,000 pitches in one game for UCLA. I don't care about that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
The stuff that's there is not good. The way he handles the game is not good. And it's just a shame because he was a highly touted arm that the Angels had for so many years. Maybe he needs to go to AAA. Maybe he's the one who should be sent down and get fixed. Because if Detmers can come up and continue to do what he's doing, if Jose, by God, Suarez can come back up and throw 95 miles an hour on his fastball, something must be going right in AAA. And I think it would serve everybody well if Griffin Canning took a little trip down to AAA and got figured out, because I'm just so over this back and forth, up and down Griffin Canning performance. And you're right, you got to have innings eaters. But at this point of the season, I need to see more of the young guys getting opportunities. I don't need Griffin Canning getting opportunities. I don't need a 6-man rotation. I don't need, well, let's just get through this season and try to survive. No, give guys opportunities. They called up Eric Wagaman yesterday.
Yeah.
They gave some at-bats to Jordan Adams, Bryce Teodosio, trying to make the most of his opportunities. So they've done it with the offensive players, and I hope they continue to do this with the pitchers as well, because, again, I just don't think that he has a spot in this rotation, and you're losing your spot when you continue to do stuff like this, when you have guys like Aldigari and Dana breathing down your neck. Oh, and by the way, you got George Clausen in the minors as well. You've got some great relievers coming up as well. So there might not even be a spot in the bullpen for you. If you want to be this year's Jose Suarez, or Jaime Barria. Maybe that's where Griffin Canning belongs, but even at that point, I'm not confident either.
Yeah, and Jaime Barria was the last guy to give up, I think it was 9 earned runs or 10 earned runs in a game as a starter for the Halos back in 2019. And here's Griffin Canning repeating that. John, what's fascinating to me is that the Angels, I felt like they tapped into something with Griffin Canning when they gave him an opener. I know it was disastrous, right? I know that those first 2 innings were not great, but then he went 6 innings and he looked fantastic, gave up like 3 hits and no runs. And so why they're not doing that again to just kind of figure some things out is beyond me. If they're going to try to keep him in this rotation, at least throw somebody out there in the first inning so that you can give Griffin Canning a clean second inning. But for some reason, they just didn't do that with him, and they haven't gone back to that. And I don't know if it was because it was disastrous. I don't know if it was because it didn't work out in those first 2 innings, but his response and going 6 innings and looking great and pitching clean, at least deserves a second shot, right? Like I would, if I'm Wash and if I'm the pitching coach and the organization, I'm like, hey, let's try that just one more time. If we're going to try things, why not just try that? What do you think?
No, I'm done. I'm done trying things. I'm done trying stuff because he how can you do what you did last week against the Dodgers lineup and completely fall apart against this Twins lineup who doesn't have Carlos Correa, who doesn't have Byron Buxton? They're all trying to get these guys back. And I understand you have bad games. Mike, it's been all season long. Why do we have to baby these guys? Why do we have to cater to their whims and their needs? And they're all delicate geniuses who all need these special treatments to, you know what? Let's do an opener. Let's do this. Let's do that. I'm done with it. This is not how baseball is played. Let's have guys actually do things the way that it's supposed to be. And that's, you go 6 innings, you go 7 innings. You don't throw 100,000 pitches because you pitched efficiently. You struck some guys out. I'm just over it. We don't need to baby these guys anymore.
Yeah, I'm just marking this date on the calendar. John is officially over it on September 11th. He's officially over the Angels. He's officially over babying. And maybe a lot of everydayers are like, yeah, it's about time, Frisch Brothers, right?
No kidding. Well, it's just look. God knows that you and I try to look for the things that are like, well, this went well, that went well. Yep. Where's the development? All that stuff. And there's just, it's not there anymore. Yeah. And the guy's 26 years old, 27 years old, plenty of opportunity. He's been on the team for 5 years and it's enough. I'm tired of it. And he doesn't need to be in the rotation, especially like I said, with who you've got, considering who you've got coming up from the minor leagues. So thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels are back at it, playing the Twins at 4:10 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, now that I've ranted and raved about Griffin Canning, let me rant and rave about Anthony Rendon. You guys are going to love this episode. He's on the IL. He's as frustrated as you and I are, as everydayers are, as fans are. We're going to share his thoughts about his injuries and how he feels about how the fans view him. We'll talk about all of that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Game Time. They are obsessed with making you somebody who saves money on your ticket purchases, whether it is for sports or any other thing, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. They want to make sure that you get the best deal every single time. With their app, you can save a bunch of money with exclusive in-app flash deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. They've got zone deals where you choose a section and Game Time chooses the seats. And then all-in pricing. It's a great feature. You just toggle it on, and then it shows you when you're done the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You also get a panoramic view of your seat before you buy so you know where you're going to be. And they have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time's going to credit you 110% of the difference. Plus, with every purchase, you receive Game Time ticket coverage, so your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets and let your friends at Game Time help you out. Just download the app, use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Again, the promo code is LOCKEDONMLB. Get $20 off your first purchase. What time is it? Game Time.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day and everydayers. We are so excited for you to join us at the O'Hoppe All-Star Bowl. It's taking place October 5th. It's a Saturday at Cow Bowl in Lakewood from 1 to 4 p.m. We're raising money for Corey's Promise, a nonprofit organization that walks alongside families whose children are dealing with pediatric cancer, helps to offset the financial burden that comes along with that. And we're so excited to participate in this event and bowl with you. In fact, Logan's going to be there. He's bringing his teammates along as well. Hopefully not Griffin Canning, because then I'll be super embarrassed. But all of that to say, we want you to be there. And if you want to come, you can find a link to buy your tickets in the episode description. Use our promo code BROS at checkout, BROS, and you can get $50 off your ticket. We're so honored to be part of this incredible event. We hope that you guys show up and show out for Logan O'Hoppe and Corey's Promise.
You can't drop the jokes when I'm taking a drink of water. All right, let's talk about Anthony Rendon for a moment, Johnny. He's back on the IL. It's a left oblique strain. Hey, we're back to this again. It's another injury. So here's a history of his IL stints over the years. 2021 in April, he went on because of his groin. May, a knee contusion. July, hamstring strain. 2022, May, wrist inflammation. June, wrist surgery. In between that, he had a little fight with the Mariners, right? 2023, May, groin strain. June, wrist contusion. July, shin contusion. 2024, April, hamstring strain. July, back inflammation. September, oblique strain. My goodness, this guy's body.
How many is this?
I know, it's ridiculous. Like, he's at least
1,
3
2,
times
3, 4,
every
5,
season.
6,
At least
7,
3 times.
8, 9, 10, 11 times. Good grief. Good
Unreal.
grief.
Unreal. He's only played 33% of the games since 2020 for the Halos. Now, Johnny, the question that I thought was really appropriate from Jeff Fletcher of the OC Register as he talked with Anthony Rendon was, can you ever be the player that you once were? And I love this interview because I felt like we got a human Anthony Rendon. We got a Anthony Rendon that seemed like he cared. And what I would just say to Anthony Rendon is, man, if you started here, I think fans would be a little bit more soft when it comes to the story of Anthony Rendon, because his answers, John, are very human, are very humble, and you can hear the struggle. So why don't you start us off with how he answered the first question? Hey, Anthony, will you ever be the player that you once were?
Yeah, Rendon said, it's hard to say because it's been so long battling injuries and surgeries for this long. I'm not getting any younger, but I'm going to continue to fight my butt off till I'm done. And then they were also,
I put butt in there.
oh, that's funny. I'm glad that you did that. Family show, kids in the car on the way to school.
Yep.
Also asked about staying healthy. Rendon said, no matter what I do, everything I try, it doesn't work. I'm battling. I don't know how else to do it. And like you mentioned, Mike, since 2020, he's played 33% of the Angels games. Asked if he had any thoughts on something he could do differently. He said, I have no idea. If you have any recommendations, I'll take them. I feel like I've exhausted every blood test, DNA test, food, nutrition, allergies, anti-inflammatory stuff, and I have no idea everything that's not a banned substance. That's why not give it a try? You don't play half the games anyway. How about a 60-game suspension?
Right.
And
but
get
60 home runs.
Yeah, but 60 home runs along the way. On his future and how he's perceived as a player, he said, it's frustrating not being able to be the man that I once was or to be the player that I once was. I got to keep persevering, keep fighting my butt off. I assume you changed that one.
I did change that one
as
too.
well. Mike, you asked this question, and I'm gonna pitch it back to you. Hearing this, does it soften your stance on him? Does it you feel a little bit more empathetic, a little bit more generous towards Rendon? What does all of this do for you?
Let me just start with what I said to begin this segment. Like, if he started here, that would have been a whole lot better for him and for fans, because here we're hearing from him a natural reaction. Like, yeah, we're frustrated with Trout, but when Trout gets hurt in his most recent injury, the meniscus tear, like, the dude's lips quivering, right? He's got tears in his eyes, right?
Yeah,
and I don't think that's unnatural. I think that's who he is, right?
It's not, I'm not here, or no habla inglés, right?
Yeah.
Because those are the two things that Rendon has said, and people have ran with that. So every time he gets injured, it's a joke about no habla inglés, and I'm not here, and all that stuff.
Or people will say, like, he doesn't care, right? And I know that's hard. It's hard to know if he does care because we don't hear from him. This tells me, John, that he does care. What it also tells me is that he's at a loss. he is at a loss on how to really help his body. And quite honestly, I think that if we change the name from Anthony Rendon to Mike Trout, I think Mike Trout's a bit at a loss as well. Why do these things keep happening? They're not chronic injuries. They're just injuries all over my body. And so what's happening to these two players, but specifically Anthony Rendon, where they just keep having these things take place? And it is probably really frustrating for him because he was a great player at one point. Now he's watching his body get older, and the dude can't even hit the ball out of the infield at some point, right? When he hits a long home run, he's in the wrong stadium because it would have been a home run at Angel Stadium, right? And so I know getting older is not fun, right? I know for me, like, quick story. About a week ago, came home. I was helping somebody. I was helping somebody at the church I work at. They got a table. I lifted it in their car, out of breath. Came home. My wife asked me to move something in the backyard. Moved it, out of breath. And so at about 7:30 that night, I talked to my youngest daughter, who's a basketball player, runs all the time. I'm like, can we go run or something? I said, because I just felt like what is happening to my body? So we ran 6 laps around our neighborhood, and she's coaching me, and I'm out of breath, but I did 6 laps around our neighborhood, right? Those are the types of things where you're like, I just want to get into shape. But as you get older, getting into shape is harder, and staying healthy is a whole lot harder. And he has got so much activity that he's putting his body through that these are just some of the inevitabilities of playing baseball for a really long time, right?
Yeah, there's a deciding point. Actually, let me go back to what you said about if he had been this transparent from the beginning, I think it would have been a very different story. I also think that the transparency that he's displaying now is because it's ridiculous, is because he's had so many injuries. But Mike, when this all started, and it's a groin strain in April of 2021. All right, fine. Yeah. Weird COVID season, weird off season, weird spring training, right? Then knee contusion. Well, he fouled the ball off of his knee, and that's going to happen to anybody, right? That kind of stuff. And he's had more of that as the years have gone on. Wrist contusion, shin contusion, those things you can't really help, like when you get hit with a foul ball, and it seems to happen a lot to Anthony Rendon.
Yeah.
It seems to happen a lot to Nolan Shawnuel. It seems to happen to Zach Neto, that sort of thing. But when you consider the surgeries that he's had to go through, you might even feel a little empathetic that, hey, you know what? He had no hips under him in 2021. Maybe in 2022, now that he's passed the surgery, things can be better. But then, then there's a wrist issue, and he's got to have wrist surgery. And all of these things add up to frustration on the fans' part. It adds up to frustration on Rendon's part. But it really comes back to what you said. If he had been this transparent, this real, this honest, this frustrated, and communicated that to the fans and to Angels fans who are invested in this team and want this team to do well, then I think that we're having an entirely different conversation than we are right now, because the jokes are out there, Mike. He's on the IL with the oblique strain.
Yeah.
The jokes are all over the internet, all over Twitter, all over social media of just like, oh, here we go again. And I feel like he did that to himself in some ways.
He's done for the year. I don't think he comes back from
No, of course not. Of course not. But what I'm saying is we're joking about it again.
Yeah.
Because it is absurd.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's not a lot of empathy for Rendon, and the jokes are flying again because this is where we are, and how he's handled this conversation in the past has not been great. And we've covered it on this show. Right. Mike, you talk about anytime the Angels come up or something with Mike Trout comes up, it's always, well, why couldn't the Angels get Trout and Ohtani to the playoffs? Trout wasn't there. Yeah. Trout hasn't been there. And we're huge Trout fans, and we'll be honest, he hasn't been there. Yep. And when stuff like that comes up, you don't see people blaming Trout for all the injuries that he's had. You see people saying like, man, such a disappointment that, he's been injured the last 5 years and da-da-da-da-da. So going back to your Rendon and Trout point, it's two different conversations because of two very different ways that they handled it. And so to me, it encourages me that he has been transparent and honest and saying like, I'm working my butt off. I've exhausted every solution. That encourages me. If it doesn't encourage you as an everydayer, or if you're a fan of the Halos watching this, or you read this article from Jeff Fletcher of the OC Register, if it doesn't encourage you, that's your prerogative. Yeah. And it's totally fine with me, because at this point, telling people how to feel about Rendon or what have you, is not something I'm interested in doing. And the fact is, he's whatever people feel about Rendon is something that he's done to himself and only to himself.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, and it's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, Prize Picks allows you to just play against the numbers. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Now, if you've been a everydayer and paid attention to the show, we told you that Prize Picks is giving you an easy W in September. All you have to do is pick more than 1 passing yard for Caleb Williams, the Chicago Bears quarterback, and you're going to get a victory on Prize Pick. His game on Sunday, first half, terrible. Then he led his team back to victory, and he had more than 1 passing yard. You would have got an automatic win.
Does Adam Rank know about this Prize Picks deal? Because I feel like he needs, as a fan of the Bears, he needs to know.
Adam, we know you watch, so you need to do this and do this right now. All you have to do is pick more on Caleb Williams for the next 3 weeks, all of September, and they're going to give you a free win. When September's over, it's all over, so don't miss out on that. Download Prize Picks today. Use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. Don't even need to win. So download the app right now, use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB, and get that bonus $50. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game.
Mike, now on to an injury that we can actually be disappointed with and feel bad for and worry about, because it's Christian Moore.
Yep.
The Angels' #1 pick from the draft this year, was tearing it up down in the minor leagues. In fact, moved up to AA fairly quickly. But as he was playing in AA on August 30th, he made a diving attempt to get a ball, landed on his left leg, hurt his knee. He left the game and left the field with some help after evaluation, which took like a week to get any news to anybody.
Yeah.
It was determined he suffered a left meniscus injury.
A week?
A week?
That was good.
They said that they're going to treat it conservatively before ramping up baseball activity. The last word that was given was that he was doing light baseball activity. He's going to remain in Rocket City. He's going to try to work his way back to playing before the regular season ends. Mike, like I mentioned, since he was drafted, he was tearing it up, right?
Yeah. With the 66ers, we didn't even get a chance to see him. That's close to where I live. And he just played 2 games there, John. His slash line was .545. That's his batting average. .583. That's his on-base percentage. 1,000. That's his slugging percentage.
Wow.
And 1,593. That's his OPS. Just 2 games, 11 total bases with a homer and 6 RBIs. Now with Rocket City, he's played a whole lot more, and he has a great slash line, John. 302, 355, 512, and 867 OPS, 5 home runs, 10 RBIs, 44 total bases.
Wow.
With 7 walks. John, I don't know if there's an incentive to more playing some more this season. Do you think that he should rest? What do you think the direction should be for the Halos organization?
Well, the first thing we need to do is throw out the window any notion that he's going to get a call up at the end of the season. That definitely seemed like a possibility. In fact, if he hadn't been hurt at the end of last month, I would have said it was a definite possibility that he would have gotten maybe 2 weeks of time with the Angels, play over some of those home stands and try to incite some excitement, but also see how he performs at the major league level so you can kind of assess where he's at. Mike, as far as ramping up activity and slowly bringing him back into that, I don't know if that's a good idea. I mean, the evaluation on his knee is a meniscus tear. Where have I heard that before? Oh, yeah, Mike Trout. Yeah. Hopefully he didn't go to the same doctor as Mike Trout because Mike Trout, it didn't work.
Yeah.
And so to me, I think that they really need to just shut him down for the year. There's no sense in risking this meniscus injury, and the fact that they're even considering that either is ridiculous or there's information that you and I don't know that we can speak to.
Yeah.
But my initial gut reaction is like, just shut him down. He doesn't need to try to come back before the end of the season. What do you say?
I think it's untrue. I don't think that they're going to try to bring him back at all. I think they're going to let him work out and do what he needs to do. I think that that's watching this team for as long as we've watched this team. That's the MO.
We've certainly heard a lot of untruths in the last couple of weeks, haven't we? Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that that's the MO of the Angels is they're going to say, oh yeah, he's coming back. Yes. It's going to be, oh yeah, we're going to work him. We're going to do this. And then suddenly like 60-day IL, right? And then he's out for the rest of the year. So I think that that's going to be the plan. And I know that there's some, let's call it manipulation, right? There's roster manipulation with the IL and stuff. Hey, this 15-day, then we move this guy to the 60-day and all of those things. So I get where they have to make announcements at certain points, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's what they're communicating with Christian Moore right now is like, oh, here's where we're at right now. And maybe there might be a future and we're going to see what happens. But I think that they already have a game plan where like, no, that dude's not touching the field for the rest of the year. That's what I think is the plan.
There's never a definite yes or no with this team. It always seems to be, it could happen or it should happen or it will happen. And I don't know what that strategy necessarily is. I don't understand why transparency is so hard for this team sometimes. We saw it with Rendon last year, trying to get answers of, hey, what's going on? We found out he visited 4 different doctors who all pretty much made the same diagnosis, except for the last one who said he had a broken, was it a tibia? Because that's where the shin was hit and it was a contusion. It didn't really matter because the way you treat a bone bruise and the broken bone would have been the same kind of treatment. But this is just par for the course with this team. So again, I desperately hope that Christian Moore is not ramping up activities to get back on the field. Obviously, he's probably going to still, swing some bats or do this or that, but things that aren't going to hurt himself in the long run. Because they need this guy, Mike. Yeah. They need this guy to be good, and he's clearly been good. But when you have a meniscus injury, it's not so much running around and making dives. It's at the plate, as we learned with Mike Trout in AAA.
Right.
Everybody went to go see him with the Salt Lake Bees, and he's out after his first at-bat because something happened during that at-bat, and it was a re-tear of his meniscus. I don't know if he tore it in that at-bat, but obviously he wasn't fully healed.
Yeah.
And so all of this just adds up to the fact that you can't take risks with your number one prospect, especially with the numbers that he's been putting up. I don't see any reason to try to rush him back. I feel like the AA season ends pretty soon anyway. They're not going to be playing for anything. There's no reason to push him to keep going. So I just think that, they said he's being treated conservatively. Well, then you better treat him extra conservatively because this is not something you want to jeopardize for the future. This is not something you want to mess up. This guy might figure into your plans on opening day.
Yeah.
And as ridiculous as that can be, it's a reality with this team. And it's certainly there's certainly going to be a case to be made that Christian Moore is on this team next year, but they're not going to be able to do that if they push him, if they ramp up, if they do something to re-aggravate that knee.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB with our friend Sully. Going to prepare you for the Fall Classic. He's got you covered from league to league, from end to end, from wherever you are. He's got you covered in the Major League Baseball story. So check out his podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.
Hey, don't forget to give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show on YouTube. Get in the comment section. Leave us a comment. We love responding to you there. Hit that like button and hit that subscribe button as well. Mike, what do we have on deck for Thursday's show?
John, Wash said something that bothered me. He said it on Monday, and it
Ron
felt
Wash?
like
Wash? What?
Yeah, it felt like old Angels culture. So I'm going to share what he said, and I want to get your thoughts and our everydayer thoughts on it tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Old Angels culture. I can only imagine what you're alluding to there.
There's a lot.
It's a lot. Settle in. All right, friends. Yeah. We hope you'll come back and join us for that. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Thursday.
Oh, you hung up on my Nana?
You told my Nana to drop dead?